New at 5, a man arrested for a possible election crime tells News 6 he's being used as a political pawn.
He was one of 20 people state agents arrested last week, now facing charges for illegally voting in the 2020 election. It was the first public outcome of the state's newly formed Office of Election Crimes and Security. Investigator Lewis Bolden is in studio tonight. And Lewis, he says he's innocent in all of this.
He does, Lisa. Peter Washington pled no contest to a felony offense in 1996 and served 10 years in prison. He says for the last 12 years, he has turned his life around, held down a job, and started a family. He says a series of events, though, led him to believe he was eligible to vote after Amendment 4 passed.
I'm angry, but I'm hurt.
59-year-old Peter Washington was among the 20 people arrested across the state last week for allegedly illegally voting in the 2020 election. Governor Ron DeSantis announcing the arrests at a press conference.
They are disqualified from voting because they've been convicted of either murder or sexual assault, and they do not have the right to vote.
Washington says he thought his rights had been restored. Did you intentionally cast an illegal ballot?
No.
In 1996, Washington pled no contest to attempted sexual battery and was given probation. But he kept violating probation by not registering properly with the state, according to the probable cause affidavit and state records. Because of the violation, in 2001, he served nearly 10 years in prison and was released in November of 2010. Since then, he says he has tried to be a model citizen by starting his own business and starting a family.
I'm just trying to live and be successful.
In 2018, Florida voters passed Amendment 4 to automatically restore the right to vote for people with prior felony convictions upon completion of their sentences, except those convicted of murder or a felony sexual offense. Under the law, felons are not allowed to sit on juries, but according to the probable cause affidavit, Washington received jury summons on 3 separate occasions, which he reported for.
That what made me think that I was eligible to vote, or my rights were reinstated. Because you know you can't be on a jury duty unless your rights are being reinstated.
Urged by his wife, Washington says in 2019, he filled out a Florida voter application, and according to the affidavit, Washington received a voter information card with a voter ID. He says he went to the polls with his wife in person and asked questions.
Me and my wife asked. We showed them the ID, we showed them the voter card, and we said, "Is this valid?" They said, "Yeah." And that's the only reason I walked in there and voted.
Why was he issued a voter ID? Orange County Supervisor of Elections Bill Cowles released a statement reading, "If we do not receive a packet from the state, we remain unaware of the individual's conviction." After the arrest, Senator Jeff Brandes, who authored Amendment 4, tweeted video of the governor's press conference, writing, "It was our intent that those ineligible would be granted some grace by the state if they registered without intent to commit fraud." Washington says the worst part has been unintentionally hurting his wife.
I don't even want to talk about it. It hurts. It hurts. I tried to be strong for her, but it hurts.
Now remember, 20 people were arrested for the same thing. We tracked down another person, also from Central Florida. She also tells News 6 she legitimately thought she was eligible to vote. We will have her story coming up at 6 o'clock.
Very interesting to hear from him and hear his side of the story in all of this. Now, Lewis, according to the supervisor of election statement, it sounds like the state might have dropped the ball in this. I mean, they're the ones who are supposed to check to make sure people are actually eligible when they register to vote.
It certainly seems like there is a breakdown in communication among government agencies, because if convicted felons are not supposed to serve on juries, why are you sending them jury summons? If they're not supposed to, if they haven't had their rights restored and they're not supposed to vote, why are you allowing them to register to vote and then sending them a voter registration card? And unfortunately, people are being arrested because of this.
Well, it raises a lot of questions, because even, residency questions and people who are registering to vote, I mean, someone should be checking, right, to make sure that people are indeed eligible to vote.
And we are going to continue to dig to see where the breakdowns are.
Yeah, and if you go to the election office and say, "Is it okay if I vote?" and they tell you yes,
What do you?
Right.
You vote.
You would think so. All right, Louis
Yeah.
Bolden, I'm interested to see your next report, too. Here on News 6, we've also reported on 4 people from the Villages charged with voter fraud in the 2020 election. 3 admitted to the crime and have entered a pretrial intervention program to avoid prison time, while the 4th is awaiting trial. They were not mentioned during the governor's press conference last week. We've posted more details on this story at clickorlando.com.